Alright, dude, like I said, we're going to shoot a straight-in approach for today. We'll get the jet configured for landing several miles out so we can go through the checklist without being rushed through it, even though it's pretty small. Raj? So for the descent and before landing portion of the checklist, the first thing we're going to need to do is check our altimeter setting. It may have changed since we took off, but it is still 29905 in this case. Next is speed brakes. Configure as required. We're straight and level, so they should be closed. And check that the anti-skid is on. Check. Alright, continuing. Invis and landing gear lights as required. Fuel quantity check. Again, we should be good here since we've launched with full tanks and we've only been up for a few minutes. Check that your indicated airspeed is good, and we're going to try and hold 200 for the time being. And lastly, remove and stow your nods, which of course you're not wearing because it's daytime. So before landing, checklist is complete.
Copy all, checklist complete.
Raj.
And I'm pulling back to 200. I was up to 289 or so. I just got to remember to push the throttles back up. I so rarely pull the throttles back in the A-10 when I fly without having to worry about any kind of an airspeed. My heading is 210, so I'm lined up exactly for a straight in. I was going to also check this switch. I've never used it in flight. Okay, so I'm going to go speed brakes, emergency retract, and there you go. Yeah, just as advertised. They do retract. Okay, now just kind of reset the innards there of the hydraulic system with the switch off. I'm going to just cycle it a couple more times, and that would have just reset and just given me a nice warm fuzzy that the speed brakes are working again. And looking out there with 2 and the terrain shadows, something has changed. I don't know if this is the final lighting thing like we've been seeing with especially on the Normandy map. The lighting just looks in screenshots way different. But something has definitely changed with this build, and well, for the better. I do like it, and I'm at 203 knots, straight and level, 5,000 feet, coming up on the apex landmark. And they also added I don't think these are part of the mission. I think these are just the default Kneeboard maps and diagrams that we have now. It's all stuff that I never ever worry about, but it is there if somebody wanted to really do some instrument approaches. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it with the frequencies up and pull throttle back just a touch more, and yeah, actually a little bit right of track. I'm going to come around just slightly to the left, and that'll get me lined up on 2-1 left, and re-engage her right there. I'm in altitude heading hold on the autopilot, and 2 is still tucked in there out there beside me and slightly in back. And so far this has been well thought out. I haven't felt rushed at any point. I feel like I could have, even right now, if I were struggling with anything, I could just
Okay, down and to our right, you can see the truck stop. This is a good landmark for getting into the pattern for Nellis. As we fly over it, we are 10 miles off of runway 21. So for today, from here, let's go ahead and start our descent into Nellis and get set up for landing. So let's start down to pattern altitude, which is 3,400 feet MSL, and we're going to be looking for 180 knots indicated airspeed.
Okay, gotcha. Starting a descent.
Descending to 3,400 and looking for 180 indicated.
Solid copy.
And 180, yeah, it is ticking down. I was about to say the 180 might be a little bit of a stretch, but I am coming down steeply enough that it's, or I should say shallow enough that it's starting to bleed off speed. And now there we are, lined up exactly on runway 21. This is a really well-planned mission. Yeah, like I was saying, as far as the timing.
180 knots, so go ahead and drop the gear into flaps. If you would confirm that you're showing 3 gear down and locked for me, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Okay, gear coming. 3 green.
2's got 3 green.
Flaps down. Speed brakes out. And throttle back in. I'm assuming from now that the intent...
Contact tower at 327.00. Good day.
I was about to say that the intent is that I just go straight into
Switching to tower at Tusk 2.
approach mode here and start to fly off the AOA
Follow me
indexer.
over to
Or
the tower at 3.
okay, let me try and get the trim set up here. I need to get the tower frequency again. 327. And yeah, let me get myself... How does it go? Aviate, navigate, communicate. I'm definitely at the aviate phase right here, trying to get myself squared away so I can go heads down and not crash the aircraft. And one more time, Nellis Tower 327. Let me just go path hold, have it hold me in there. Okay, 327, space.
Set.
And I didn't crash. Okay, that's good. I guess I at least never really bother with frequencies and changing it this often. You're really getting sort of an appreciation for how difficult that can be to do and fly at the same time. Kind of makes you appreciate the preset channels as well. As I'm on
Okay, one last time.
AOA.
Go to the pit and make sure everything's okay and that the jet is configured for landing. Go ahead, fly the approach, and try not to spend anything while you're at it.
yeah, no kidding.
Raj, thanks for the encouragement.
We'll watch how you're doing and circle around and touch down after you.
Copy.
Okay, so I'm settled down now and back into my little groove here. I just have it trimmed out now so that I'm practically hands off, just managing the velocity vector with the throttle. If it starts to dip, I throttle up just a touch to bring the velocity vector back up to the runway threshold. I see the AOA indexer. That was telling me I was a little bit fast. I would rather be a little bit fast than a little bit slow. So just a touch of throttle and I'm right back in there. And, whoa, there's two. Making a close approach right there. And I was about to say, the reason I have the speed brakes out is that if I do need to go around for some reason, my throttle is already up, sort of counteracting the speed brakes. So all I would have to do is, to get more thrust, is retract the speed brakes and then push the throttles up. The engines take a while to spool up, so that just gives me an advantage if I need extra power, but I should be fine. Okay, verifying 3 green, flaps down. Everything's looking fine. And knock on wood, but yeah, the landing is so much easier in VR. It's flying in general there's just no comparison when it comes to your perception of where you're at in relation to everything. So coming down here to the touchdown point, I can go ahead and pull the throttle in, flare a little bit, and yeah, there we go. I'll just hold the nose off a touch, and the nose is going to come down, and I'm just going to roll it on out to the end. Speed brakes full out.
Just stay on the active until you're at the end of the runway. That's going to be taxiway alpha. Pull off a little bit and hold there until I catch up with you.
2.
Tusk 2, vacate when able, contact ground when clear of the active. Clear active when able and contact ground, Tusk 2. Don't worry about that, I'll handle it when I'm down and ready.
Okay, sounds good. And I haven't even
Roger.
touched the brakes. I should actually touch the brakes just to make sure that they're working, and that's just fine. But man, that was neat. That was a lot of fun. It was presented well. I don't have a complaint in the world about the pacing. I never felt personally that I was ever behind. And I also felt like that if a new player wanted to really take their time and just run through this, even going as far as referencing a manual or referencing a checklist, I don't think anything was time sensitive at all. It was just all based on triggers and me hitting the spacebar once I was comfortable and moving on. So that's an ideal way to do it as far as I'm concerned. My understanding is that this is the first of 10 missions, and it's going to get more and more in-depth on systems. This was just the basic takeoff and landing, and it's just going to be, well, sort of like a transfer course with elements of initial qualification, going step by step, switch by switch in the cockpit during the startup. So I think in either case, for preview purposes, that's a good look at what we can expect from this DLC campaign once it is released. When that's going to be, I have no idea. I'm sure Baltic Dragon has no idea. That's just going to depend on how further refinements and further testing goes. And as you could imagine, this is a lot of information to put into a campaign and a lot of research on the designer's part, so I don't envy him the task, but for Mission 1, so far so good. So I think I'm going to wrap this up here. Hopefully this gives you some idea of what this campaign is all about, and you can see the work and the detail that's already gone into this. I'm looking forward to the next missions. This was a lot of fun, so thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.